Hello all, I hope you are all well in these extraordinary times. I would like to welcome you all to the Fintech Finance Virtual Arena where we're hosting you today. In this special arena, we're going to be discussing payments, but on the payment side when it comes to charity. Joining me today, we have a regular with Fintech Finance for the last 5 years. We've got Jason from Saltage. How are you doing today, Jason?
Very good. Good to see you, Ali.
So I love that we're getting to see into people's a little glimpse into people's lives and backgrounds and such.
Yeah, sorry, my dog is decided to get active just at the wrong time.
I was going to say we also have Sean from Roundups, and who else have you got with you today, Sean?
I have Cleo causing chaos in the background, but yeah, other than that, she really is. I don't know if you guys can see her, but she's just come to life at the wrong time.
I love there's always video chat bingo, so you know, dog, child, cat walking across the keyboard. Excellent. Well, we are in a very strange time at the moment, and I suspect, I like to think that a lot of people want to try and give something back. We've touched on this before, and the example I always give is people doing what they can and what they're best at. So our friends at Flock Insurance, they do drone insurance. They're insuring any drone for free if it's helping deliver medical supplies or whatever it may be for any kind of drones used against corona. So there's a lot of nice things like that happening in the world. I do think a lot of people want to try and give back as best they can. So I want to kind of start with Roundups. What's the concept here, Sean? What exactly are you guys doing?
Yeah, so this idea has been kicking around for a while. Roundups effectively was born out of the intention of replicating the kind of action of receiving change at a till and throwing it back into a charity box like you would. Obviously, people are using cash less and less these days, so those donations are effectively just completely lost. So it's estimated, I think Barclaycard did some research, and they've estimated that charities are losing around 80 million as a result of us moving cashless across the UK. So yeah, we kind of wanted to replicate that experience digitally, and in essence, in a sentence, Roundups is an app that rounds up all of your card payments to a figure that you set, donates the pennies off to a cause that you choose, and then reports back on the impact of those penny donations as you go.
I mean, that sounds relatively simple. Why has this not been done before? I mean, this should have been done 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's exactly the thought we had. So, I mean, it has been attempted in various guises, particularly over in America, and the closest thing to it in the UK, which is a real sort of inspiration to us, is pennies donations, which is something everyone will have seen, whether or not they know the name pennies. That's kind of checkout donations. So the chip and pin device will ask you if you want to add 25p. So kind of there's a relation there. We're a bit different in that we cover all of your transactions, so because we link to your bank account, whereas pennies donations, checkout donations only happen at certain retailers, and the donations only go off to the charity that retailer or merchant has partnered with. So it has come around in various guises, but it's not taken off just yet. So obviously we're hoping that the timing is now right with open banking and everything that's developed in that area.
So it's not just point of sale transactions, it would be from direct debits, from standing orders, from bank transfers, etc.
Yeah, exactly. We cover a range. So we're probably not going to go down the route of bills. We're actually going to ask sort of users, or early users now in the next few weeks, what they would prefer, because some people are a bit less comfortable with that. At launch next month, we're going to be focusing on sort of what we're calling proactive payments, so things that you actually go out and initiate, because instinctively it feels like people might be less comfortable with those donations happening with kind of automated payments, things that you're not familiar with. But in theory, yes, we could, in the future, I'm sure we'll be able to set it so that people can choose whether or not those transactions are included. But yeah, it covers anything in your bank statement that you want, really.
You said the O word here, and I want to bring Jason into this. So got to talk about open banking and bring this in. How is open banking actually enabling this?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I mean, I think just before we touch on that, if you look at some of the services that have tried to do this in the past and are doing it to a point are fairly successful, they've typically been doing roundups around investing your money, and so ultimately it's about how you grow your finances. This probably is one of the services in the UK, one of the first services in the UK that's saying, right, that's great, but what about donating some of that spare cash to people? And it's like people want to donate, there's two things that they typically struggle with: is going through the process of donating, because A, do they trust somebody, don't they trust somebody, and B, do you have that spare cash to donate? So this is a great way of doing it. So I think the Roundups service will be successful, and I was really excited when Sean came to us and was talking about what he was going to offer. We're helping the guys out with, so Roundups connect to the SaltEdge Open Banking Gateway. That basically gives them access to their customers or their users' open banking accounts. And at the moment, it's in the UK. Obviously, we support the majority of Europe. I mean, I think currently today we connect to just under 3,000 open banking APIs. And when Roundups want to expand that outside of the UK, they've got that flexibility and capability. Even to the point, if they want to go further than Europe, obviously we support 72 countries, but with direct access outside of open banking. But I think also we enrich the data. That means that should Roundups want to use the capability, they can very quickly see that a transaction is for a coffee payment or a supermarket payment. And then in the way that Sean was describing, it's very easy to say, well, maybe we don't take Roundups from your essential spending, but we take Roundups for your luxury spending, as an example.
How, and this may seem a bit of a sort of far-fetched question, how integrated could this get to be? So, for example, I bank with Starling. Could that be integrated to the point where when I see my transactions, it's not, £3.50 Cafe Nero, 50p Roundups? It would just say £4 Cafe Nero, and it would automatically do it that way. Is it possible to get it to that kind of level?
I think, it's a really good question. It's something we thought about a lot. I think that the end goal for this form of donating should be that it exists inside your banking apps already, that you don't need a separate app. If I had it my way overnight, we would exist inside all of the major banks, and we would just be a middleman. You wouldn't even necessarily know the name. It's just that instead of rounding up and saving, there's just an option there in your Monzo or your Starling or in your legacy bank to just activate this, turn it on, and start donating. That we've had chats with banks about this, and it is a space that's, I think it's for us a mid to long term goal. What we found is that across banks themselves and within any individual bank, there's a real varied opinions on this. So whether or not it would become a priority, I think that as banks need to differentiate more and more, then this sort of thing will become more of a priority. But from our perspective, we're really focused on doing the standalone app, showing that this can be a really engaging donation experience, kind of proving that it works and that it does a lot for good causes, and then we'll think about that sort of more integrated approach. But definitely, I don't see why not. To touch on Jason's point, I think people are really familiar now, or becoming more and more familiar with the Roundup mechanism to either save, so with Monzo Pots, Revolut Vaults, Starling Spaces, or to round up and invest, so with the likes of Moneybox. So we're trying to create a third space in people's minds that, you don't have to do that. You can also donate it, or at least a portion of it. So I see no reason in the future that this can't be part of your banking app, definitely.
That's interesting, because we spoke with in a previous virtual arena with Akmal from Risk, and I know very little about Islamic banking, but one of the things that he brought up was, I'm going to butcher the name, one of the pillars is Zaduk, which is you have to kind of every year give a percentage of your wealth, and this can be quite an effective way to kind of link that all in together.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something we've explored, but definitely anything we can sort of jump on to instigate this sort of behaviour, we're going to be, doing.
Okay, well, let's just take a step back. 'Cause I always like to look at how these things come around. How could this have practically been done before open banking? Is there any kind of very long-winded workaround, or is this entirely reliant on the fact that open banking exists today?
I think the long-winded workaround, I think there are two things. First is the thing you see, the checkout donations that already exist, which, as I say, I'm keen to point out, it is an amazing system that exists out there. They raise millions for charities every year. But you don't get feedback, you don't get to choose the charity. There's some things that you kind of miss out on there. So that's one workaround. But I think the second one would be banks doing it themselves. So kind of what we just spoke about, a kind of integration. And again, to deliver the experience that we want to, and to make this engaging and rewarding, it's a lot of work. So that's the workaround. It's banks doing it themselves, partnering with the charities, and then doing the whole job of reporting back on where donations are going. So I think that without open banking, that's the only real way to deliver the same sort of experience.
And I think just adding to that, I think there's two things. Obviously, without having access to open banking, you've got two choices. You use screen scraping, which was a very successful way of getting data pre-open banking. Now that the banks have opened up their data, fantastic. It makes life a lot easier. But also, if you then put this into the bank's hands, it will be slow, it will be wieldy. It might be narrowed down to charities that are relevant to that bank, and so it makes I think it's more difficult for the banks to build something and launch it themselves. And as we all know, they launch something and then typically it's out of date 6 months later, and to try and update that, it takes them 18 months to get there. So I think if you're partnering, if you're a bank and you want to provide this, then obviously partnering with somebody like a Roundups is ideal, because you can change quickly, you can add charities quickly. I can't imagine if this was provided by the bank, the process of adding charities would be a quick process.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about SaltEdge's role within this. So, how long ago did you, Jason, get involved with this? And now that we are live now, right?
No, next month.
Next month. So, what's been the story to kind of get to where we are in terms of SaltEdge's involvement?
Yeah, so we started talking to Sean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but I think it was probably around January or December. Sean was looking for a solution there was a couple of things. Sean was looking for a solution that could obviously automate and make that capture of data very simple, because users are going to struggle to use and adopt a service if there's any manual element to that whatsoever. So if this isn't just happening in the background, it becomes difficult. I know Sean was looking at a couple of vendors, I think, and obviously Sean will step in, but I think we did a good job of managing expectations. So we were completely upfront with where our strengths were and where our weaknesses were. I think we demonstrated that through that couple of month process that we had a platform that you could connect and work with very quickly. And then obviously we were very sensitive on commercials, because obviously it's a charity. So we wanted to make sure that we put something in place that was worthwhile for Roundups to succeed and survive as it grows. Because ironically, if you're very successful, your costs are going to grow when you work for a provider that plugs into open banking API. So I think we ticked all of those boxes. But what's impressed me is working with Sean and his team from when we first engaged each other. It's been really easy. It's not been difficult. I think we've all understood each other. So I think it's worked very well. I mean, I can't remember once where we've had an uncomfortable conversation that something hasn't gone right.
Yeah, and I echo all of that. It's really been great. I think I was proactively looking. I've been aware of open banking. I definitely wouldn't consider myself an expert on the area by any means, but obviously I've learned a lot over the sort of the last 6 months when I've been getting into it all. But I was proactively looking for an open banking aggregator with very few sort of connections in the space. So I ended up speaking to probably over 15 different vendors. So now I consider myself to have a fairly decent insight to what's out there. And I think, the one thing I would say above all else that SaltEdge did and what Jason did was really understood the sort of social thing that we're trying to do here, and took a genuine interest in that. And everything else sort of fell out of the back of that, really, sort of being sensitive to the commercials as he touched on. But that was the key, really. Just like anything, just understanding each other has helped a lot, I think.
Absolutely. I'm going from, if you're going live in May, and 4 months ago you started the project, bloody hell, that's light years ahead of some of the incumbents.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's it. So the idea has been kicking around for a bit longer than that, I must say. But we engaged with SaltEdge. I think probably December, January time. Yeah, as Jason said. But we've probably been working on this, I think, full time now since September. So it's a little bit longer, but even so, it's moved really quickly, and it's felt like an age because a lot of work goes into it. It's when you look at it like that, it's not been long at all. But so for that reason, just really can't wait to ship it next month. Start getting people to donate to the causes that have joined us.
So where do you want this to go? Because I imagine as well there must be obviously huge partnership opportunities with all the big banks. I imagine as well all of your Just Givings and Virgin Money Giving as well. They'd all kind of want to kind of be a part of this and partner together. What's on the what's the moonshot to aim for?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that when you sort of start thinking like that, you can probably get a bit distracted. It's great. You can give yourself moments of getting excited and thinking about all of the banks that are going to be approaching us. So yeah, I mean, as I touched on, I think that the dream moonshot, as you say, for this would be that it exists. It's really accessible, basically. You can turn it on really easily. And that can come in various guises. But for now, our focus is on understanding what makes it engaging and what makes people sign up, really. That's going to be a big challenge because it needs scale to work. We only ask for pennies off individuals as they spend, so it's tiny amounts. So for us to really make an impact, we need to get tons of people using this. So we think the best way to do that is work out, in the short term, what engages people, what brings them to the platform, and gets them behind the sort of the larger mission, if you like. So that's kind of it for now. We try not to get too distracted with the absolute end goal, because there's a lot to do to get anywhere close to it.
Well, on the moonshot side of things, if let's say hypothetically, let's say every bank in Europe wants to partner with you and work with you, what would that mean from a scalability side of things, particularly again with some of your work that you're doing with SaltEdge? Because I mean, SaltEdge, you shouldn't be able to scale, should you?
Yeah. Well, you'll be pleased to hear, Ali, that we have millions of users on our platform. So from a scalability perspective, it's fine. To support Roundups, I think one of the unique things that we offer the guys is that our coverage across Europe for open banking APIs is the largest in this space so far. We're pleased to say that because we were an early adopter and we built our platform back in 2013 to digest APIs. It's just that banks weren't sharing data then. So we were able to still a march on a lot of the companies in this space, but then obviously we support all those countries outside of Europe, which makes it 72 countries as a whole. So if Roundups wanted to partner with institutions where all of a sudden they wanted people to link their bank accounts from South America, Australia, Middle East, Russia, then we've got full coverage. So yeah, it's not a problem for us as a business. It's more about Sean's dream, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, look, this it would be amazing to get out. It is really good to know, and that was definitely factored into the decision of partnering with SaltEdge, that we've got that scalability option there. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to downplay it. All of those things are on the roadmap. It's just that it is a long road. But yeah, it's all there. We'll assess once we've kind of got some traction in the UK where it looks good to go next. And yeah, I mean, we've spoken about how quickly we've made this move. I think that just today I was talking to somebody on LinkedIn actually about expanding into Europe, because they're from Germany and they were talking about, we'd love to see this here. And I was kind of like, well, we have got the capability with SaltEdge kind of straight out the blocks to make that happen. So it's not so much the tech there, it's kind of the logistics of comms in different languages and things like that. So it's kind of a different set of challenges really for us to scale, because I think, as Jason mentioned, we're good to go from a tech perspective, really.
Brilliant, excellent, awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for that. It's such a simple thing to explain that you get it, you understand it, and I'd like to have that option and that functionality across every bank account that I bank with, even on the business side.
Perfect, thank you.
Where can we find more about you guys?
Roundups.org.
And LinkedIn, best to reach you?
Yeah, Sean Donnelly, LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. Love to speak to anybody involved in social sector, charities, fintech. Yeah.
And Jason, we'll be seeing you at all the events next week.
Absolutely. No, so obviously you can contact us through LinkedIn. You can find me, Jason O'Shaughnessy, on LinkedIn. Obviously, SaltEdge on LinkedIn. So yeah, we're everywhere.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much, guys. We'll catch up with you and Cleo soon.
It's great, Ali. Thanks for that.
Cheers.